Hello! And this is a review for the monster movie Kaijū Daisensō, or The Great Monster Battle, or in the States it was called Godzilla versus the Astro Monster, as the title placard says. And without further ado, we will get into the plot of this movie after the cut. As I said, the plot begins with a couple of space pilots, one Japanese, the other Caucasian of some odd descent, flying in a rocket ship in space. They wind up landing on a planet and discovering that there's life on said planet, aliens, and they begin to have a dialogue with the aliens. The aliens say that they are under attack by a killer monster called the Astro Monster, or Monster X. And basically they want to borrow the use of Godzilla and Rodan to basically fight their Astro Monster. And what happens is that what happens is, the two astronauts realize we aren't really equipped to really talk about this type of thing. We'll take your offer back to our people, the people in charge, and they'll think about it. So they go back to Earth, they talk with their leaders and the aliens, and they say, we agree. So they go back to the aliens, they begin to make friends with the aliens, and the aliens say, okay, we're gonna come and we're gonna capture Godzilla and Rodan. And they do, and then they transport Godzilla and Rodan to this mysterious planet. And basically Godzilla and Rodan, or Gojira and Rodan, fight the Astro Monster, or Monster X, which turns out to be King Ghidorah. I mean, it's Ghidorah. So basically, they fight, they finally drive off Ghidorah, and Godzilla, this movie has an infamous scene where Godzilla does his victory dance, which I will leave a link to the description because it is one of the WTF moments of Godzilla movies. You won't see another one until Godzilla versus Hedorah, which I'll leave a link to that in the description too. But so basically, Godzilla, they drive off the Astro Monster. The aliens are like, yes, we drove them off, and now you are our prisoner. Turns out that the Astro Monster was under the control of the aliens the entire time, and now Godzilla and Rodan are under the control of the aliens as well. The aliens capture and throw these two astronauts in jail, in a cell. The astronauts basically are in this jail cell, and the Caucasian astronaut eventually winds up seducing one of the alien women, and they wind up becoming an item, kind of, sort of. She eventually hints at their weakness. It's a certain sound frequency. They get this information to the scientists. The scientists figure this out, and they use the sound in order to disrupt the aliens' operations, and also to destroy their control over the monsters. Once they lose control over the monsters just naturally start fighting. Godzilla and Rodan try to fight Ghidorah, but they get their ass kicked, and they eventually wind up getting knocked into the ocean, and Ghidorah flies away. and the aliens, meanwhile, like the humans and their scientists use this new weakness that they've discovered of the aliens, the sound waves, in order to make the aliens go to bug out, and they basically destroy themselves rather than than be subjected to the human tyranny. And that's the end of the film. It ends with your typical science sci-fi film of the 60s. Weird, kind of hokey ending. But overall, it's a pretty good film. I will get into why this is important after the cut. Okay then, now for why is this important? This is the first film in 9 years, 10 years. Let's see, check my... Yes, the first film in actually 11 years that had Godzilla getting his ass kicked by another monster. Most of his other battles where he lost were like due to chance or through some clever convention. He and Rodan get their ass kicked by Ghidorah. This begins to cement King Ghidorah as one of the monsters that Godzilla it's not easy for him to defeat. This is also one of the first films that in a long time that shows humans actually having a bigger, more important role than just, oh no, it's Gojira! Ah! Ah! And running, evacuating the city. You know, the ineffectual military march. Dun 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 dun. You know, with their little tanks and jets and boats that inevitably get blown up by the monster because, I mean, you need a monster to fight another monster, not human shit. But this film actually has the humans actually contribute a pretty hefty amount to the total victory, which is, you know, shocking for a Godzilla film. They still have some decent monster fights in the film. Kind of a large focus on the aliens, but still some decent monster fights. The really big thing is that this film establishes that there is a hierarchy in the monster universe. It's widening, it's getting bigger, which is kind of cool because this will become very important later on once we get to 1968's DAM, or Destroy All Monsters. So we still have some more films, I believe 2 more films to go before we get to that point. So stay tuned for the conclusion after the cut. Okay then, now it's time for the conclusion. Basically, in conclusion, this film is your standard Godzilla and plus some other monster versus a larger, bigger monster. I believe the monster scenes in this film were constructed from Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or versus Godzilla versus the three-headed monster, because basically I think they filmed more footage than they needed, and they just basically took the leftover footage from that film and put it into this one. So basically, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla versus the three-headed monster, and Godzilla versus the Astro Monster, I think they are 2 halves of the same movie, and they just cut it in half and made 2 things, because a lot of the things that go on in the first Godzilla in the three-headed monster kind of don't make sense. Like, why are Godzilla and Rodan fighting? This can explain why they're fighting. It would make a lot of sense. So stay tuned for the next film we'll be covering, which is Ebra, Horror of the Deep, or Gojira Ebra Masura Nankai no Daiketo, or Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. So stay tuned for that. Thank you and have a good day.